Good morning, everybody. Very happy to have you all here. Maybe to quickly introduce myself, I'm Stephanie. I'll just be talking about the organizational parts here for this demo. We will wait a little bit, a couple minutes also till the rest of the attendees arrive, and then we can start directly. Perfect. I would say let's give it a start. Welcome today to our Practical Insight series, of course, the CPR update for the stainless steel manufacturers. Very organizational stuff right now. We will record the session also for you to have, and I will send this to you afterwards. Feel free to interrupt, raise your hand, ask in the Q&A session, ask in the chat. The more interactive it becomes, the better. That said, there will also be a couple polls throughout the meeting, throughout the Insight series. So with that said, Harry, maybe I'll give it up to you and you can already start.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steffi. First of all, thanks so much, everybody, for joining. So my name's Harry Wade. I'm based in the UK on the south coast in Brighton, and I'm covering our UK and Ireland markets here at Emidat. I'll pass over to Rob before giving a more detailed introduction to who we are at Emidat.
Okay, thank you very much, Harry. Good morning, everybody. I'm Rob Cooper. I'm the Managing Director of the British Stainless Steel Association. For those of you who don't know me, I think we've got a few of my members out there this morning, which is great. Yeah, I've been in the industry for about 35 years now, from in the stainless steel industry, and I'm very pleased to have now represented the whole industry as the British Stainless Steel Association for the last 5 years. Okay, next slide, Stephanie. Okay. So for those of you that aren't familiar with us, the British Stainless Steel Association is a member-funded trade association, and we're here to represent the whole of the stainless steel industry. So that's right the way through from raw material extraction, manufacture of the stainless steel, distribution, fabrication, surface treatments, installation, and increasingly important in this day and age, end of life and recycling. The sustainability message of stainless steel is a very big one for us. We are a very sustainable material with 100% recyclability of that material. And that is one of the best recycling rates of any product out there. Certainly strips things like plastic and things like that. So puts us in a very strong position. We're based in Sheffield, which, if you're not aware, is the birthplace of stainless steel back in 1913. And we are very proud of that here in the UK and in Sheffield. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So what do we actually do as a trade association? Well, our main role really is to develop, promote and increase the use of stainless steel in the UK and Ireland. That's our territory. So, you know, stainless steels are a small part of the overall steel industry. We make up approximately 4% of the total of the 1.8 billion tons per year of steel that's produced out there. However, stainless steel is really important for that, and including and especially in the construction industry, which we're going to talk about during the course of the session today. But stainless steel is everywhere, and what we're trying to do is to bring together all those businesses producing, trading or working with stainless steels, and then to enhance the profile of stainless steel really with the interest of all of our members, whatever point of the industry that they're involved in. One of the key areas we do, and please use us for this, is we do provide technical advice and business information, training and education. Today is one of those sorts of areas, but we do an awful lot of training, a lot of different subjects are covered, etc. So again, please contact me if you want to know anything more about our stainless steel training or technical advice areas. And the final thing is to be the voice of the industry to policymakers. It's really important that although we're a small industry, our voice is heard by those decision makers down in Westminster, and we do get our voice heard through the trade association and through our links with the likes of CBI, with UK Metals, etc. Okay. That's it for me. So I'd like now to pass back to Harry to go on and talk about what we're really here to listen to today and the importance of this and the importance of where we're going on construction product regulations. Okay, over to you, sir.
Thanks so much, Rob. First of all, I'd just like to give a quick introduction to Isabel as well, who's joined us. So Isabel, if you wouldn't mind giving a quick introduction.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Harry. So hello, good morning. I'm Isabel, go-to-market team lead based in Munich, so our headquarter. And yeah, very happy to be here today.
Thanks very much, Isabel. Isabel will do a short demonstration of our product at the end of the call. Great. So diving into who we are, what we do. So Emidat is a climate native product management solution, as you can see. So our goal is very simple, to make sustainable materials commercially valuable, not just compliant. We work across construction material manufacturing. But today, of course, the focus is specifically on steel manufacturers in the UK, and that's a big part of our work here at Emidat. Next slide, if possible, Steffi. Thanks so much. So we currently support around 150 customers across more than 20 countries, so we're a global business, and we have implemented 55 product groups on our platform. I'll go into a bit more detail later on what that actually means in practice. Important thing to point out from our side is the importance of support to our customers. So our customer support team are all LCA specialists. So when our customers have any questions, they're speaking to people who actually understand the methodology, but also the practical production reality. And so we're proud to have that high customer rating. Obviously, we're here to look at the CPR, but also EPDs as well. To give background, of course, the majority of you will know what an EPD is, but to break that down further, an EPD stands for Environmental Product Declaration. So it is a standardized, independently verified report describing a product's environmental impact across its life cycle, based on a life cycle assessment. So in construction, you can think of it essentially as the nutrition label for building materials. In terms of this slide, what it shows essentially on the top is that traditionally the EPD process has been rather manual. You collect the data, you send it to a consultant, they model it, and verification happens, and then the EPD is published. This process, because it's so manual, can be incredibly lengthy. So it will typically take, as it states on the screen, sort of 6 to 12 months, but the timeline will vary enormously. What we do differently, and this comes back to the implementation of the product groups, is we implement and verify a product group once it's inside our platform. That makes the verification process faster and allows high quality data to scale across many products. This matters because far more products will need verified environmental data, as we'll get into, and those sorts of manual processes simply don't scale. Steffi, I don't know if you wanted to throw open a question. I think you're muted, sorry.
Thank you for the pointer over there. Yes, to make it a little bit more interactive, please react also if you have ever done EPDs, if you already knew about the process or in general. I'll also shoot it in the Q&A. Anybody who wants to react is welcome too. But Harry, we can continue also with the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Steffi. So we've given a little bit of context on Emidat, who we are. We can move on to the CPR, the Construction Product Regulation. We'll look at what it is, what's changing, why it actually matters for steel manufacturers in the UK specifically, and explore that. So at the highest level, the Construction Products Regulation exists to what's called harmonise how products are assessed across Europe. to ensure there's one shared rule set rather than fragmented national systems. And importantly, this isn't a brand new regulation. The CPR has existed for a number of years, but what's changing is the type of information that becomes part of compliance. The process can be seen in the 4 steps indicated here. So first, the harmonized standards define a single method to declare product information across Europe, removing, as I mentioned, the country by country differences. Second, manufacturers create the Declaration of Performance and Conformity, or DOPC as it's known, which now also includes environmental information or data. Third, that enables the CE marking, allowing the product to be legally placed on the EU market. And finally, the format changes. So instead of PDFs, the information becomes a structured digital product passport, which combines the existing technical data with environmental data into one data set. Giving a little bit more context on the digital product passport, or DPP. So this will be a structured digital record that travels with a product through the supply chain. So instead of separate PDFs like data sheets or an EPD, for example, all the information will sit in one data set: technical performance, environmental impact, compliance data. So in terms of the practical changes, yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, it's just a question really about the UKCA marking as well. You've obviously mentioned CE marking and the relevance there. How do our UKCA approved construction products fit in with the European model?
Yeah, so under the kind of amended the construction product amendment regulation that has been kind of, the amendments went into force earlier in January, that essentially aligns with UKCA marking and CE marking. So importantly, and I will get onto this, there will be the requirement and recognition of CE marking under the amendment to the constructions product regulation, under England and Wales law, but there is not the requirement for products sold into the UK to have a digital product passport as part of that requirement. So essentially that's where kind of the CE and UKCA marking fits in. Is that okay? Clear? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. That certainly helps. Yeah.
So in terms of the practical changes that matter, that are important, obviously we mentioned that the CPR has been an existing regulation for a number of years, but what are the changes that matter? So as you can see, the DOP, the Declaration of Performance, becomes the Declaration of Performance and Conformity. So today manufacturers provide this DOP, but under the revised CPR, this becomes a DOPC. So initially the conformity element won't actually dramatically increase the workload, but over time it enables performance thresholds. So for example, there'll be upper limits on certain environmental indicators, across different environmental performance indicators. Second, sustainability becomes mandatory. So environmental indicators are no longer optional under the CPR. So they'll become part of compliance. They'll become part of product compliance. Thirdly, the verification changes, but doesn't disappear. So it's moving from notified bodies. So those are familiar, obviously, with technical audits. They'll also audit the environmental data under what will become a kind of updated assessment system. But this principle of independent verification remains. And then fourth, coming back to the DPP, so the format will change. So from documents to structured digital product data. instead of PDFs, the compliance information becomes a digital data set, a unified digital data set containing this technical and environmental information. Just on to the next slide if possible. Great. So we've referred to the phrase of harmonized standards. What this slide refers to, is the different product families, but also when they will be implemented by the EU Commission. So before getting to that, a quick recap of harmonized standards. So a harmonized standard doesn't approve a product. It will define how performance is declared. So the CE mark works across Europe and is not fragmented. And the important point to raise, if we could just dive into numbers 2 and 3 if possible, Steffi. So these product categories will be phased in order of the types of products that you saw on the previous screen. But for structural metallic products and ancillaries and reinforcing and pre-stressing steel for concrete, those are amongst the earlier product categories to be implemented. So for structural metallic products and ancillaries, that was implemented under the old CPR, but in any case, for both product categories, it is very important to be aware of these changes, and also to be aware of the kind of timeline for when these will be implemented, which is something we can move on to. Thanks, Effie. And yeah, on to the next slide if possible. So in terms of the CPR in the UK versus the EU, so we touched upon this with Rob's question, but it is an important point to raise. So before impact, we obviously need to separate the EU and UK legal positions. So in the EU, as we're discussing, the revised construction product regulation introduces the structured digital product information, so the digital product passport. So that makes verified environmental information part of regulatory documentation. In the UK, products follow separate legislation, and CE marked products remain accepted alongside UK CA marking. So products assessed under EU harmonized standards can still be sold in the UK without duplicate certification. Okay, so despite that, the UK does not require a digital product passport for domestic only sales. That's the key takeaway here. It's confusing because the amended regulation in the UK under England and Wales law has the same name, as is the case for a lot of EU regulations and directives that have been had amendments put into them, but been made into law in England and Wales. But fundamentally, there is a key difference, and that's that for domestic only sales, a digital product passport is not required. Great. Obviously, ask if any questions on that at the end. So the important also to point out that the impact is not equal across industries, and this is part of the reason why we're here. So for steel, it's particularly strong because the sector is export oriented. So roughly 3/4 to 4/5 of UK steel exports go to the EU. It's around 2 million tons per year. So for many manufacturers, EU regulation directly determines access to their primary external market. So unlike some other...
Yeah, sorry, I will just say that is steel overall. The stainless steel part of that is significantly smaller, but still an awful lot of the stainless steel produced in the UK, and also as a melt and pour scenario, but also as fabrications or components, does also go back out into the EU. So it's just more a comment more than anything else.
No, absolutely. And I think something that we can touch upon later is also, even if the product, whether it be steel, stainless steel, is not exported into the EU, the impact that will have on supply chains and procurement. But no, thanks so much, Rob. So for what we were getting to is that, unlike some other heavy local materials like concrete, steel moves across borders and sits inside international supply chains to a higher degree, and really that creates a few impacts. Obviously, what we've touched upon a little bit already, but first is market access. So exporting to the EU requires this structured environmental product data. Second, expectation alignment. So because UK projects and suppliers overlap with EU markets, as I was alluding to, procurement coverages converges around one data set. So ultimately what that means is that even if a stainless steel or other steel manufacturer is not exporting to the EU, and we're seeing it already that in the UK market, procurement will converge, and this requirement, even if it's not in the DPP format yet, it is highly likely that procurement will converge around that. Third, around operational complexity. So steel portfolios include multiple plants, grades, routes. So that challenge becomes maintaining consistent product level data rather than producing sort of the odd occasional document. So yeah, for steel manufacturers, the CPR will become part of daily operations, not just a regulatory update, which moves on to the practical question: how do manufacturers actually produce this data? So we can move on to the current EPD process and how it supports CPR readiness, as we call it.
Maybe let's do a quick pause also
Sure.
to make this a bit more interactive. Right now was a lot of information in general from the CPR, from the impacts. I don't know if there's any questions on the public. Yeah, I think right now we can also take the time to ask.
Again, well, I'll go with this. There seems to be an awful lot more levels of administration, of complexity, certainly as far as in the current flow or process flow, a lot of time as well between starting the process and coming to the end and actually creating your EPD. I'm seeing a lot of I'm continuing to see the costs to business increase, and this is sort of like not really going to help matters any further. Obviously there's cost and time to take into account here. What benefits can we see from introducing these CPRs, these EPDs into the industry?
Yeah,
it's quite an interesting one. And sorry, I know that's sort of like quite a broad question, but in times when markets are difficult, what are the benefits of UK businesses really taking this on board?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think, how can it be streamlined? How can it be made easier? That's certainly something that we would wish to highlight in the demonstration, which Isabel will move on to later. Obviously, your question centers on why would manufacturers choose to do this? I think ultimately that comes down to commercial and regulatory pressure. So here we're touching upon some of the regulatory pressure for goods that are exported, and discussing what will become a requirement rather than pressure. But what we're already seeing is that the commercial pressure is directly influencing procurement in the supply chains in the UK. So this applies to steel, but it also applies to different product groups that, because of large contractors and also those stakeholders and groups within the public sector requiring this environmental data, it's moving from a kind of nice to have to a must have, to a requirement for manufacturers to provide this data. So in practice, what we're seeing is that because of things like the London Plan and different local and central government authorities requiring these data sets, it's impacting, of course, the public sector in that regard, but then also filtering down into larger private sector contractors. And so within procurement, it's filtering down across kind of that business supply chain. So there's this requirement to do it. But then moving forward, where can it be a business benefit, right? So there's this requirement to do it, even if it's a commercial pressure. But where can it benefit businesses is actually being able to make changes. So if there's a streamlined solution that can be able to provide this data, there will then be incentive to make improvements. So that will have a positive impact on procurement decisions and also public tenders, etc. And that's something that kind of Isabel can touch on in terms of where we kind of support with that process.
And I think also what is very important here is, I mean, it's anyways clear, right, that you need to provide that kind of data. The only question is, when do I start? Yeah, so do I still wait or do I do it now? And there, like, our very strong conviction is the earlier a business really moves to it and knows how it works to create an EPD and then or later on a DPP, the bigger the benefit and also competitive advantage is going to be. Like why we typically have like a three step approach, yeah, where we see that it actually has business benefit. First step is, I mean, you can serve customers that are already asking for it, yeah. Whereas if you don't have it, you just can't, yeah. So it's a hard yes or no. Then secondly, we would say even when your competitors then also start doing EPDs, you will still have an advantage because at that point you will have already covered a bigger part of your portfolio. You have started to also start having different data probably internally. It's like for every company, it's a process, right? It's nothing you just do in 2 days. So there you will also have an advantage. While, I mean, we also all know that all the topic around sustainability is also tied to credibility, right? That you build also with some time. And then even once it's all mandatory, you will still have an advantage because you have used all that time to improve and actually use the data. Not just create the EPD, but really understand your data, make, as Harry just mentioned, procurement decisions, and really improve the values, because this is something we already see across industries, that values are being compared. So it's not just about having the document, but actually about the performance. And this, of course, the more time you give yourself, right, to get to a good point, the better it is.
That's great. Thanks so much, Isabel. Yeah, go ahead, Steffi.
Yes, we have a question also from the chat, which says, how do these regulations apply to construction materials and products coming into the EU UK from outside the EU UK?
Yeah. Do you want to touch upon that, Isabel?
Pardon, I think I didn't really hear the question. Steffi, maybe you could, or I could also quickly read through it, right?
I can repeat it. It's so how do these regulations in general apply to construction materials or products coming, let's say, into the UK or into the EU and also coming from outside? So essentially coming from any other region, let's say Asia,
to
America.
Europe. Okay,
Yes.
so that's okay. So we also talk to customers rather that are not based in Europe. I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I'll try. So we also have a lot of prospects and customers that come to us that only serve the European market, but they're not producing here because they also get the same requirements, right, from the customers. So at the end, they're also, let's say, indirectly forced to do it just because the market tells them to do so. I don't know if that was a question fully or not. Yeah.
No,
So then they're not forced by their law directly, but I mean, as they're want to sell that product to the European market, yeah, they will also create EPDs.
yeah, that as far as I understood the question, that certainly covers it. It's the same principle as in the UK. So if exporting to the EU, those requirements apply, and the knock-on impact that it will have on domestic-only sales in that respective country may be impacted, but that assessment would need to be done on a case-by-case basis, dependent on that country.
Yeah, I think it was Tim, right? Tim, does that answer your question, or Tim Collins, I think? Okay, I hope so.
Great. Okay. Excellent. Great. So I think what we were just going to briefly just touch upon was the existing EPD process and sort of how that will change just in the slide above, if that's okay, Steffi. Thank you very much. So yeah, as we've spoken about and touched upon for most manufacturers, what we need to establish is if this environmental data becomes mandatory, which, as we've spoken about with the CPR, it will do, where does it come from? So this already exists through the EPD process. So the CPR doesn't replace EPDs, it changes their role. So today, an EPD is voluntary, and it's verified by what's called a program operator. But under the CPR, similar data becomes mandatory inside the Declaration of Performance and Conformity, and is assessed by what's called notified bodies. So the methodology stays the same. So the EPDs follow the EN 15804 plus A2 standard, which is the accepted European standard for EPDs, and will report the same sort of indicators. So global warming potential, acidification, etc. So if it's okay to go to the next slide, if possible, Steffi. So yeah, so importantly, this data will move from being voluntary to being required. What we also kind of want to touch upon is not just the compliance element as well. So where will this environmental product data provide a competitive advantage in addition to being required under the changes to the CPR, but also B, some of the other pull factors that we mentioned earlier, such as procurement, commercial requirements, and what we see with our customers is some other competitive advantages, which Isabel can kind of actually show you during the demonstration. But there is the facility to actually develop your product further, with looking at environmental product data, so with R&D, using EPDs for sales, and then being able to actually use this data for customer loyalty when you're looking at the digital product passport, which we can go into. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just picking up on a question that's been sent in by Jeff Edwards, and the question is will exceeding EPDs verified by program operations or operators require a new verification from a notified body?
Perhaps that's Isabel, if that's something you want to start with before going into the demo.
I'm not sure, I have to admit, on this one. I would need to discuss with the team. So yeah.
Okay, well, it's obviously a
know.
good question there, so
and
thank you.
It's a very good question. So Steffi, maybe you can note it down, and if that's fine for you, Rob, maybe we can just send you then the answer and you can share it with the participants afterwards.
Yeah, not a problem. That's fine.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks so much, Rob. So yeah, Isabel, if you want to perhaps dive into a short demonstration of the product, just provides an opportunity for everyone to see what some of this looks like in practice.
Maybe on the time management, could you quickly let me know how much time we have left then for the demo, so I can properly guide you through.
Yeah. So Steffi, we've got just over 20 minutes left. So I think for purposes of the demo, maybe 12 to 15 minutes. What would you agree, Steffi?
And Rob also, yeah. Okay.
Agree.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
So you can see it well, right? And also read it, hopefully.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, good. And then I would also encourage all of the participants, right, as Steffi also mentioned before, whatever questions you have, post them in the chat, and then we can either during the demo or just afterwards try to answer them at least. Let's see. I'm happy to hear some other excellent questions and also learn myself, of course. So as you can see, we're in the middle of the Emidat platform. Let me maybe quickly explain how the fundamental architecture is. So we first have the company level. We then secondly have the plant level. Yeah? So let's say you had, I don't know, three production sites. Yeah, then it would be 3. And then at third level, we have the products as such, which will always be modeled plant specifically. Why is that? Because of course, even if you are producing the exactly same product, but just in 3 different sites, the plant data, production processes, energy consumption, and so on will still differ, right? Which is why we will always model this plant specifically. Yeah, it's very important to understand. So what we will start with, and this I will just touch upon very quickly, is of course with the settings. You can put in all of your company information, the logo that will also appear then later on the output documents. We can then start adding all of your plants. Harry just mentioned before, right? We are already active in around 55 product groups at this point. For you, you would just click here, add the plant name, your exact address, and then we would click then all on your corresponding product groups. Once we have done this, we would also define who the users are of the platform. Like typically, every license includes 3 users already. So who is that? We always have one person that is the account owner. That's a person that manages all rights, can invite other users. And then we have different roles. Yeah. So on the one hand, we differentiate the LCA expert. That's the person that can actually manage the data, change the data, and create the EPDs. So probably the most important role. Then secondly, we also have the option to have the sales manager role, meaning that's a person that can only view the data, that cannot edit it, but that can then share it with your customers. Yeah. So depending on how many products you have, that can be quite convenient. What you can also do, especially for companies that are larger, you can also then, I don't know, let's say, Rob, yeah, you were working for one company, so I would invite you over here. And then I would say, okay, for you, you can please just see one of the plant, the one plant in Germany, but you're not allowed to see the one in Spain, for example, that we have. So you can also manage the viewer and user rights across plants. Or also if you have a daughter, mother company, and this kind of constellations, that's also quite convenient. Once we have done this, we would click here on the left, and this is where now all of your plants would appear. I will click and now select the exemplary plant we have for steel to showcase this. So what we will now do is set the plant up. And for this, we will basically take 3 steps. And you can quite easily remember them by just looking at the tabs that we have here on the left. So first of all, what are the materials that you're actually buying, right? Then secondly, what is the production processes, what does actually happen then to those materials. And then third of all, we will start modeling the specific products, putting in technical specification information, and of course, the exact composition, yeah, of the product. So how much of each material is in here. Let's start with number one. Yeah, so the very first step, which is the materials. So what you will basically do over here is create, let's say, a long catalog, yeah, of all the materials you use across products. Yeah, so it's the database, yeah, you will later on use, which will encompass on the one hand what material it is, who the supplier is, where the plant is located, what the transport distance from their plant to your plant is, and of course we will also link data. Yeah, so let me quickly show that to you, how that will work. I'll click here on new material and say that's our example. I don't know if you, I'm just going to take something, yeah, at this stage. You see there is already a long list, yeah, of a lot of materials that we have in here. Of course, this is something we always then even add on, yeah, once we have the onboarding with our customer success team, yeah, that Harry mentioned early on. But there is already a lot to select. So I will click, for example, right now on the steel profile. You see automatically we have already matching with the secondary data sets, which is EcoInvent. So what they do is that they create industry averages for certain regions and certain products. Yeah, so this is automatically linked, no work here for you. You will then say, okay, who is my supplier? Where is their plant located? What are the transport modes, yeah, to my plant? I don't know, let's say 200 kilometers and I don't know, 1,000 on water. And maybe in that case also are parts of the material recycled, yeah, and what is the share. And then you would just save it unless your supplier has themselves an EPD, yeah, which mean great, we can then actually use primary data, so link primary data. So in that case, you would click in here. We have all EPDs that are published are in this database. Yeah, so in this case, you could just type in the name of your supplier and also, of course, the name of the material, yeah, that we are just adding here. And then you could just look through the database and let's just assume, yeah, that was the one that you just bought. So then you could just save it and we would use primary data. Yeah. So, and this is also the differentiation you saw here. So either secondary data or primary data. And what you can also do is to also incentivize suppliers, yeah, to create an EPD. You can even invite your suppliers to create a first EPD for free in a separate account. Yeah, so that is also great functionality. Why is that relevant to you? Well, there are two reasons. Yeah, number one, there is like a buffer in EcoInvent, yeah, because it's an industry average, of course, there's like a 30%, yeah, they take on top, meaning that typically if you use primary data, meaning an EPD, you will also have better values. And of course, secondly, you also have bigger transparency. You can then really do procurement decisions and so on in the future. Yeah. So what you can also do you don't need to do this manually. Yeah, I think that will take quite some time. Yeah, so there's a shortcut of doing this, which is just clicking here on upload. You can download an Excel template. And then you can just do a bulk upload, yeah, out of your systems directly. So probably, I don't know, your purchasing team, right, has this kind of data in some kind of ERP system, whatever it is. So then you can just directly put it in that Excel, do a bulk upload, and then the list is done. Yeah, so that's a quicker and more efficient way of doing it. But of course, if you prefer the manual way, yeah, you're also free to go. Yeah. What else can we do? We can also add packaging materials. We can also add silos. So silos means we group several suppliers that are supplying you with the same material and then can input the amounts that you bought in the last year. And then the corresponding share will automatically be calculated in the background. Yeah. Once we have done this, we can move to our second step, which is the production. Yeah. So what happens now on the production as such. Here again, yeah, very important. One EPD always refers to 1 year. Yeah, that's typically a calendar year, so to 12 months. So that also ensures that you can input your data every year and then also run this through and then see what the differences are and so on. So what you will do over here is input what was the total production output you had for that specific plant in the last year. Yeah, so let's say we would start working together this year, then ideally you would take 25 data. You will then also select the right energy mix that you used. Yeah, so in this case, like the default mode is always a local energy mix of the country where the plant is located in. In this case, the plant is located in Germany. In your case, it would be UK, for example. But of course, you can also select custom mix and then input some other mix. Of course, that requires a guarantee of origin, right? You cannot just input some data, but it has to be backed. You will then also input, of course, the total amount of energy that you used. And then lastly, let me quickly go out here. We will then create and add all the production processes that you have on that site. You see, we have already a lot of templates and exemplary production processes. This is something we would also set up with you at the beginning, right? I'm just gonna take one example. I have a, I don't know, steel fence over here. So you will see the different production steps. We will also input what was now the total production output for that one production process over here. And then in relation to that, so to this output and the output of the total of the whole plant, we will calculate the like the energy, allocate the energy, the amount of energy that was consumed. Once we have done this, we can move on to our products. So this is a product overview that you saw at the beginning. Here we again have two options, right, of modeling our products, either also via an Excel file, or manually. So manually would be here creating new product, saying, okay, that's my example product. You can then select what it is. We will have an automatic product description in here. You will then be able to select the corresponding unit. And an EPD always refers to one declared unit. And depending on the product and also the rules that are being applied, there might be only one option, or also several ones. You can then select what data we will take as a basis, in this case 24 data, and then click Next. Second step is then to input the technical data specifications like the density for that product. I quickly jump to already modeled examples so that we can save a little bit of time. So let's quickly just take this, for example. So edit all of the technical data that you have, then go Next. And now that's a moment where out of the long material catalog of all of your suppliers, right, that we created at the beginning, you would now be able to select whatever materials you now specifically used for the composition of this product. Once you have done this, you will also input the total amounts that you used. And then click Next. You just saw, right, I changed the amount on purpose. I quickly wanted to show you we have some plausibility checks in here, meaning if, for example, like in this case, the masses do not add up, it's not that just accidentally you will then create an EPD. That doesn't make any sense. Now I corrected this, click Next. You can now select the corresponding production process out of the ones that we created beforehand. Click Next. And now the product is already being modeled. So here you would just upload the picture that you want to appear on your EPD. You can see here the different environmental indicators and the impact of your product, plus also a median in here. I hope you can see it. It's a bit small probably right now on your screen. You can also here on the right select if you want to see all stages or also A1 to A3. So A1 to A3, for the ones who are not familiar to this, means A1 is like the impact from the materials you buy. A2 is then the path from your supplier to you. A3 is now the production processes, the energy consumption and so on that you have. A4 would, for example, then be the path from your plant to your customer's site or whatever it is. So you could also see all scenarios if you want. Also have some deeper look into it by environmental indicator if you want to do some analysis. See also how this behaves per raw material, and then I mean, not surprisingly, in this case, the steel has the highest impact. So this is what you can do over here. And now you have several options, and we will come and talk about the EPD in a second, but I wanted to also quickly highlight two other options that we have. So what you can always do is also create a PCF. Yeah, so you can imagine the EPD is a document that is, on the one hand, of course, third-party verified, encompasses the most information. Then we have the LCA, the life cycle assessment, that's a core part, that's like the number part, yeah, let's say. And then the PCF would just be one single part, yeah, out of it. So this is also something that you can create as a one-pager and share with your customers. And that's just as an information for one of our customers. I don't know if you might know them, Knauf Interfair. We're also currently implementing the ISO 14067 standard for PCF, which is relevant for automotive industry, for example. It looks a little bit different. It will look a little bit different than this one, but the idea is the same. You can then even create compliant PCFs for the automotive industry. Yeah, just as a one-pager as well. Yeah, if relevant. Not mandatory, if relevant. So that's one option. You can also create an LCA, yeah, as a self-declaration. So this is here. Yeah, you can see these are the different environmental indicators. Here we have the different life cycle stages, yeah, from the beginning to the end. And as the platform is pre-verified, that means that the values over here will be the same than in the EPD, but it's still considered, of course, a self-declaration. Yeah, it's not an official document. So this is also something that you can use for internal purposes, for, I don't know, a quick exchange with your customer, for example. Now, for the EPD, you would click here on Verify. You can see a preview of the EPD over here. We are pre-verified with EPD Global at the moment, but also for context. So that means, let's say the highway is built. Yeah, so at very low cost and fast speed, you can create EPDs as of today. I will mention this in a second, but we're also planning to pre-verify with EPD International, yeah, in case that is more relevant to you. So there will be even a second option. Yeah, Steffi, sorry, I think I'm over time, right?
Yes. No, actually, there's a question coming up in the chat. It's saying, considering data for production processes, do you take into account the massive emission reduction advantage that high recycled content brings to all steel production? So are we taking into account the recycled content?
Recycled part, yes. Recycled part on the material level can be, can be inputted. Yes. Does that answer the question? Like yes or? Yeah. Okay. Good. So that's now the EPD, right? So you see it's a long document. We can see the production process that we selected. We can also see the product specifications, and of course also the life cycle assessment. So meaning the table, yeah, that I was talking about before. So this we will also find in here. And now what you could do is just send this out, yeah, away. And with EPD Global, this will take like a week, yeah, because we are pre-verified. Yeah, that means they have already taken a look at the platform as such on how we do the calculations. So the only thing they need to do is actually check your data, yeah, but not Emidat as such. And this is how we really save a lot of cost and also time. The cost here for an EPD, like the external cost, yeah, for publication is 35 euros. So also very convenient. Why is that? So you don't have any verification cost anymore, right? So typically if you go the manual way that Harry just showed at the beginning of our meeting, this would be like 2,000 to 3,000 euros per EPD. And this you don't have anymore, right? Because we have pre-verified the platform. Yeah, so that's a huge advantage over here. And same procedure will also be with EPD International. Now, last of all, to also quickly mention the digital product passport. So you already see all of this product profile over here. Yeah, that's a preparation for the digital product passport. Yeah, so this profile already as of today can be shared over here, yeah, by clicking on that button. And then your customer can access like a reduced version of it already today. And as more and more information around the DPP will be in here, or will be published, we will also implement them in here, yeah, more technical specifications and so on. Yeah, so all of this will be then updated. And where do you share this to? So we have what we call Emidat Atlas, which is a database as of today for EPDs, but that in the future will be for DPPs as well. And there you will be able to, for example, also manage access rights, yeah, for one EPD. And then last of all, what you can also do very easily is you can create duplicates, yeah, in case you have product portfolios that are quite similar, but just one variable, yeah, is a little bit different. you can do this very easily over here. And what you can then do is you can compare products as well. Yeah. So on the one hand, you could either compare your own products or also external products, like competitor products, like in this case. So I could click here. Here you have, I don't know, Tube Investments of India example, and then you see the same analysis, but now also for a competitor product. Yeah. And we oftentimes see that in tenders and so on, just numbers are being compared. So apples and bananas, yeah, very often. So what you will always also see over here is whenever it cannot be compared. Yeah, that's an equally important information, and also why it cannot be compared. So that you also have just more knowledge, yeah, about what makes sense and what doesn't. Yeah, Steffi?
Yes, we have another question saying which documents would then be official?
So the official document is the EPD. So really clicking here on verify. So this is the document that's going to be the official one once we have sent it out and paid the 35 euros. Yeah. And this will appear on, like, officially then be published on the EPDs platform, which is the European database for EPDs. So this is where myself, you, and every customer could just type in the manufacturer's name and product name and then find that EPD. Yeah.
Amazing.
Great. And then last but not least, and I know I'm widely over time, you can also, on top of that, yeah, now imagine you have modeled all of your products. For some, you might do EPDs. Maybe for others, you don't need them at the moment, but at least you can analyze them, right, and see where you stand. And what you can then even do on top. Yeah, let's imagine you're participating in a public tender for a building that will get a LEED BREEAM certification or something. So what you could do then is also create a new project over here with a project name, I don't know, office building 123. Yeah. So an office in London. And what you will then do is you can select all of the materials, yeah, that you products that you're now gonna I'm just going to take something. Yeah? So all of the products that you're going to sell to them, you could now input in a list with the total amounts. Yeah. And then it will calculate a GVP for that specific project on top. So that's anyway something then the planners and so on will do. And with this, you could then apply for that public tender. Yeah. So you would give them the EPDs on the one hand, but then also already this list, which, by the way, you can then just download, of course, either as an Excel file or as a PDF. Yeah, I think I just had it here, for example. Yeah, so you can just take it as a PDF. I think now you can see it, right? So it's like just a list, yeah, that you would have of that specific project with the respective impact.
Right. We have one more question. So following on the topic, okay, what documents should be then official? I think here is actually asked, okay, what about then the DOPC, right? Is that then the official document, or is it rather, yeah, how does it play with the EPD and so on?
So, I mean, for products that fall under the harmonized standards, the DPP will replace the EPD. There will be still products that do not fall under the harmonized standards, right? And for those we will still have EPDs. So I think there will be a transition period, so to say, where you will have an EPD and then also DPP becomes, of course, mandatory. So you will have the DPP. I don't know, and probably at that point you will then not need any EPDs anymore. But you're already perfectly prepared, yeah, because you anyways have all the data in here, and can then also output that. Does that answer the question? Or I know, Steffi, anything to add from your end?
No, not particularly.
Yeah.
I hope that answers, CG.
I'll stop sharing. So sorry, Rob.
No, thank you very much. It was a very informative session. I think it just highlights the complexity that we're seeing in the new introduction of not only this but numerous legislations that are coming in through our industry. This has certainly highlighted something that I'm not going to say I wasn't aware of, but I was not aware of the impacts that this would be having on the producers, the manufacturers of products and services within the construction industry. And I think it's just highlighted something else, that we need to be out there. We need to be talking to people about this. We need to be raising the awareness. So thank you very much for your time this morning on that. I will just ask, are there any other questions at all from the floor before we close?
We had a follow-up actually from Tim regarding, so we were talking about, okay, how the regulations apply from products coming outside of Europe or the UK into the region. And the concern is essentially that products originating outside of the UK could bypass this process. So is there any kind of policing or of adherence to the regulation in place?
Products that bypass the UK specifically, or the EU?
So we're talking about both. We're talking right now about essentially any product outside EU or the UK being produced outside and then being imported, right? And then what Tim is concerned, as far as I understand, is essentially if you're originating any product outside, then you can bypass the whole EPD, or how you're modeling your product is not maybe not as accurate in a data wise. So is there any kind of type of policy right now in place where this could be, let's say, minimized?
So to understand, so you're saying it's a European manufacturer that's serving the European market, but they're producing otherwise, and now the question would be, okay, like if they're maybe not being so accurate or whatever on.
That is
sorry,
my understanding, Tim.
Sorry, I'll just make a quick comment on that. Yeah, this is a concern that the industry has currently over CBAM as well, and the emissions and the accuracy of that data, and who is actually going to monitor that and check that data's accuracy.
Yeah. And I think it's very important to differentiate what we're exactly talking about. So on the one hand, I mean, what you just saw, right, the Emidat model, that's all the LCA model, and this we can ensure, right? It's our job to ensure that the data is good and correct and high quality. Now the question is about the manufacturer's data, because of course this always is the responsibility of the manufacturer. I mean, this from what we know so far, there will be audits in the future exactly on this. So this is already, at least on European level, I'm not fully into UK, but at least for Europe, that's for sure that there are going to be audits that are going to be taking place. We don't know yet exactly how this will look like. So are they going to come to the plant? How are they going to check this exactly? But I think this is something that's for sure going to happen. Good question would be then, how is this going to apply for a manufacturer that is importing stuff, right? But then the plant is outside of Europe. I don't know, but I guess this will be a common problem that then needs to be solved. And I would hope, sorry, but I would also hope that the market would also put some pressure, because I think if there's someone that has like numbers that are not believable, I think there has been also some like legal discussions already. For example, if you lose a tender based on this, and then anyways it runs to a third party, right, that also at least does plausibility checks and at least sees if it's within plausible ranges. Sorry, Harry.
Just to add to that, so audits, of course, as Isabel indicates, will become a critical infrastructure under the DPP, and the way in which that process will be managed by the notified bodies. As touched upon earlier, there will not be the same legal requirement for UK domestically sold products, or products that are manufactured outside of Europe but sold into the UK. But the question mark is around, will those same contractors or other bodies that are purchasing these materials require the DPP anyway? Okay, so I think that's one of the key kind of points of what we've discussed today, is that even if there's not the legal requirement because it's not within the EU, what may happen, but again, it depends upon the market, is will the DPP be required within kind of UK supply chains, and then as a result, those audits will become a part of that.
All right. I hope it answers. We have one last question. I'll quickly share my screen just to answer this, and then I think we can call it a day. Yes, so it's essentially continuing or following on the topic, which documents are essential. The question is, DOPC is a declaration of performance and conformity, of course, and how is that connected then to the EPD and DPP? Isabel, do you want to answer? I can also take over here.
Take over. That's fine, Steffi. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've
So
been
essentially
talking a lot, so.
So essentially what we have right now in the EPD is environmental indicators, correct? What we had before under the last CPR was the DOP, so the Declaration of Performance, and this would count all the technical properties that you have, including strength, durability, and so on. What is going to happen is that this DOPC, this conformity part, is essentially the sustainability indicators that we have in an EPD. That means that your DOC, your Declaration of Conformity alone, will entail all the data that you have in the EPD. Now, why is this DOPC so important? Because with the DOPC, you can get your CE marking. And all this data, essentially everything here, the DOPC, the DOC, everything separate and together, will come in the DPP. So you can think about the DPP essentially being a container of all your information, including technical specs, sustainability, installation, reparation, maintenance, and so on. Hope that answers a bit the question.
Okay.
Cool.
Fine. Stephanie or Harry, would you like to close the meeting down now? It's we have slightly overrun, so apologies for that, but I think it was worthwhile and we've answered a number of questions. So, you know, that's always a good sign. So thank you very much.
Yeah, happy to do so. Rob, thanks so much for joining us today. Obviously, everybody, thanks so much for listening in as well. If you do have any other questions that pop up, you know, after the webinar, feel free to reach out to us at Emidat, and we'd be happy to help. But yeah, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.